some time answering those questions. Luke, nice to meet you. How you going?
Hey, Cam, mate. Good. Thanks. How are you?
Good, good. What was that? Was that a call preparing for the weekend?
It was on with the chairman's club with Nick and
Very nice.
all the partners.
Oh, very nice. It's an exciting time. I wish I could say I'm glad that my Seagulls aren't playing you guys. To be honest, I can cheer for you on the weekend and be honest about that. I don't know if we get to the final, it might be a different story, mate.
Yeah, I know. I reckon they're in a really good shot.
I hope so. I mean, I think we can only beat Melbourne once, though. So,
yeah,
you don't want to play twice. Yeah, exactly right. All right, guys, we might kick off. There's a few late stragglers, but that's okay. The session's being recorded. We've got a bunch in here already, 150 people, 151. It's all coming in. So just a bit of housekeeping for those of you on the call. You would have heard me already say this. Ask questions in the Q&A or the chat bot. Brittany and Netta will be helping us there, but maybe we kick off. So I wanted to start welcoming us to today's session with a quick acknowledgement of country. So I begin today by acknowledging the traditional custodians of the land on which we meet and pay my respects to their elders past and present, and I extend that respect to Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples here today as well. So let's kick off. We all good? Cool. So today's webinar is brought to you by Flair and Veretis' new partnership. What we're doing is we're helping to bring employee wellness content, technology, and programs to Australian business leaders. We're really, really excited about the partnership. It takes Flair's free employee wellness and perks app to the next level with world-class mental wellness content, podcasts, offers, tips, and programs, all from Veretis' amazing psychologist and EAP department. So if anyone on the call wants to find out more, please do let us know in the exit survey. And I think I mentioned earlier, a quick note to the audience. There will be a recording of today's session that will be shared with you tomorrow. And again, we would love to hear from you. So jump into the questions panel or the chat if you have any questions, and we'll try and jump to those throughout the session. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce our speakers for today. So first of all, we've got Luke Keary, a three-time premiership player, a leader who's not only had to deal with his own adversity of living in the bubble last year and an injury this year and trying to work and focus on his team's performance from afar. We're really excited to hear him as he shares his perspective and what his football club, the Sydney Roosters, do to help enable wellness in the strange times that we kind of face ourselves in. So welcome, Luke.
Thanks for having me.
We've got Oliver Brecht joining us as well. So Oliver's from Veretis, a global provider of EAP and corporate psychological services. Ollie is the managing director and a performance psychologist himself. And he's going to be sharing insights and data of what we're seeing overseas as businesses open up and the impact to wellness and mental wellness as organizations focus on this rebuilding and reconnecting. So he'll be offering a bunch of tips for leaders to think about. So welcome, Ollie.
Brilliant. Thanks. Very happy to be here. Very excited.
Nice. And then myself, my name's Cameron. I'll be hosting and sort of asking a bunch of questions today. I run the sales team here at Flair. So let's jump into it. So really, really excited about today's session, especially on RUOK Day. It's, a really, really important topic anyway, but even more so this year for Australian business leaders and HRDs. In a time where different states and territories have all been impacted over the last 18 months in really, really different ways. And with lockdowns coming and going and businesses struggling to deal with performance in an ambiguous kind of future, it's a massive challenge on HR teams and business leaders alike. So a bunch of questions that we continually get speaking to our customers, partners, and enterprise leaders are, how can leaders lead when their employees are working and living in remote bubbles? How are we facilitating teamwork and company culture in a changing kind of hybrid work environment? How do we set employees up for success and don't allow standards of performance to drop during these times? What can we do to mitigate the very obvious and very real challenges to employee wellness during these times, whether that's mentally, socially, physically, financially? And look, what are some of the tips that strong teams like the Roosters can share in preparing for a return to work in the future? So for the next hour, we're going to dive into all of these topics. And again, any specific questions that you guys are dealing with, we've got an all-star cast that will be able to answer and share some tips and lived experience. So I thought I'd start, Ollie, with yourself. As a psychologist working across corporates, both locally and also globally, you're in a really interesting position, working with a really large range of different types of businesses. Perhaps you can share some of the data that's coming in and what you're seeing in relation to the impact of snap lockdowns, uncertain working conditions, and how that's impacting employees and employers alike.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's been a really interesting ride being on our side, as well as living it, but obviously also supporting mental health for organisations and individuals across Australia and the world over the last 18 months. It's been a really interesting journey. We've sort of seen two very distinct timelines or timeframes. We had 2020, about March-ish, April, when COVID first started to really arrive at Australia, and we obviously saw some uptake during that time, but it was mostly based around fear of what was this thing? What is this thing we can't see? No one had really lived through a pandemic before. So there was a lot of health-based uncertainty as well. And it was interesting, again, because we do a lot of global work, we sort of were gifted the opportunity to look at what was happening in other countries that were actually ahead of us in regards to their rates, their case numbers as well, and sort of how that was impacting mental health. So we knew in 2020, before it hit our shores, that when it did get here, we were going to see a two-week reduction in actual uptake of mental health. There was going to be a bit of a holiday, really. People working from home, quite novel, would take the commute out of situations. I don't have to sit next to that irritating team member anymore. All these sorts of good things happen. And we saw that when it arrived in Australia. It was 2 weeks, we went very quiet. It was this weird sort of world to be in, because everyone was talking about how concerned they were, or how concerned the government, etc., were about mental health, but we just weren't seeing it. And then I remember it really quite vividly, at that 2-week mark, right on that 2-week mark, literally to the Monday to the day, we went from 50% booking rates up to 95. It went bang, straight away. And that was with, again, like I said, the uncertainty, and those that were impacted most were those that were caught in a big life-changing moment when COVID and lockdown hit. Relationship breakdown, leaving a job, new job, etc., and or individuals that were already living with a mental health issue. It exacerbated some of the struggles they had. And then in 2021, what we've got now is fatigue. We've got burnout. There's nothing novel about this thing anymore. There's nothing exciting about this isolation and working from home anymore. It's a drag. It's moving on us, and we can really see that the uptake now, which is, we haven't had that big spike, we've just had this steady increase over the last 4 to 5 months, 3 to 4 months of steady increase of just uptake as people start to fatigue and burn out. And really it's about trying to thrive, not survive COVID, because again, we don't know exactly when it's going to finish, but that's sort of been our understanding or our viewing of it over the last 18 months.
Yeah, nice. Thank you for sharing. Yeah, and I think we all experience it in different ways, right? As we reopen, it'll be interesting to dive into some of the stuff you're saying later on in the session today. Luke, I think most people on the call will kind of understand from afar what NRL and some of the AFL players as well, I guess, for those Melbourne attendees here on the session that might not know, but from afar might know what you've had to endure over the last 12 months. I guess I was hoping you could add a little bit more colour to this from the front line. You've been in a really unique position over the last 18 months, working in a team environment. Last year, everything suddenly stopped. It was uncertain how the game was going to survive. I think it was the first time the competition was stopped since the war, which sort of shows how crazy that time was. And, obviously training alone, no clarity of restarting, that would have been really stressful to anyone. And then to later then get moved to, an isolated bubble up in Queensland, interstate, without family, expected to maintain top performance. Ollie, you mentioned surviving, not thriving. You don't get that luxury in professional sport. There's that expectation for top performance under, pretty difficult working conditions, right? So it'd be really great to hear from your perspective what that journey looked like from from an employee of the Roosters in the NRL.
Yeah, so we're obviously, I'll start off by saying we're obviously really lucky. We've obviously got to still work and things like that. But yeah, the first lockdown was an interesting one. It obviously all just came to a bit of a halt very quickly. We just got told kind of tools down, go home, and then kind of 2 or 3 days later, all the talk started about the salaries and they're going to stop salaries and things like that. And then that's when the financial uncertainty comes into it, home loans and things like that. But I still remember that first couple of weeks, you just went, I guess as footy players, we've always, every year we've got a goal. We're trying to get somewhere. We're trying to win this grand final. We map out a path on how to do it. And that's it. Our whole life revolves around this one thing. And every decision we make, lifestyle, personal, relationships, professional, is all aimed at trying to get to this one object. And all of a sudden, that target is not there anymore. I spoke to a lot of boys that were just lost, which a lot of people in society right now are lost. But I remember I got Victor Radley, who's one of our young boys, and his old man's a builder, and we just started labouring for him at the time, and it was a bit funny at the time, but I look back and just went, we kind of needed a purpose or something to do, and the first thing we just went, bang, let's go do it. And then obviously things started to evolve. I think we might have had 2 or 3 months off. As soon as we got the clear that we were coming back on a certain date, I just remember the whole mindset and attitude shifted in the group. We all of a sudden had a goal again, had an objective, and whether you're training by yourself or with someone, it didn't matter, because you knew what you were coming back into. And I think I found that's very important over my whole career. I've gone into some seasons, you just float through some seasons, and I see people do it in working organisations too. You're just floating through, doing your job, and you're not actually going anywhere. And I think when I've been successful and when I've gone through some really good patches in my life and footy, I've spent time with myself. I spent a lot of time with myself, figuring out where I want to go, how I'm going to get there, and exactly what I need to do to get there. And it kind of, that was the path that it kind of went on through that little period. And then obviously the boys have been shifted now to Queensland, but I'm here in Sydney doing some rehab. I think they're enjoying their time a bit more than me.
Up in the sun, no doubt. Mate, it's interesting. I mean, look, from not that I'm a footy player, but I've worked in sales my whole career. I totally empathise with you on having a goal and a target. And, I don't know what I'd do if that goal was taken away, but maybe that's something that workplaces can kind of learn, like how important it is to be clear when it comes to goals and goal setting. Sort of gives you something to anchor during these kind of weird times. Because at the end of the day, you guys are employees that are, struggling with a workplace, just like everybody else, Ollie, listening to Luke's story there, it's obviously professional sports, a unique scenario, but it sounds like no individual is really immune to dealing with changes that to their work, which impact, all these different facets of their life.
No, absolutely. I mean, change, human beings sort of, some of us like change more than others, but fundamentally change is a threat to all of us, and being, especially when it's thrust upon you and not thrust upon you from a positive state either. We were all, asked to change pretty rapidly, pretty quickly, pretty significantly for something that was relatively out of our control. Well, more than relatively, it was out of our control. And also wasn't really providing us with much opportunity or presenting in a positive manner as well. So, as you both have said, that change, that shift, that this is where I'm heading, this is where my life's going, this is the purpose, all of a sudden being just uprooted and, hey, let's put this on pause for who knows how long, caused a lot of disruption for a lot of people.
Yeah, 100%. I want to jump into leadership quickly, because I know a lot of people on this call are business leaders and responsible for managing people that are leaders as well. And Luke, you're part of the leadership group at the Roosters, and generally as an organisation, I think that the Roosters as a whole is viewed really aspirationally in terms of its leadership principles, values, and success, like from the front office all the way to the back office, players, everybody. So personally, and like within the Roosters more broadly, how have you had to adapt your leadership style when you can't be physically present, you're out of the bubble while your teammates are in it?
Yeah, that's probably been a little bit of a difficult one. You obviously don't have the influence on the results every single week, and you don't have as much influence on the boys playing either. But I've kept in contact with a few of the key boys there, a few of the younger boys that are in my position, and you kind of constantly just give them a little bit. You don't want to give them too much, but you just want to stay connected to them. You want them to know, or I want them to know that I care about them. I care about the results. I care about the team. And I'm there if they need anything. And that was probably a big lesson I learned off Cooper Cronk, who kind of mentored me through the last 3 or 4 years when he came to the Roosters. Was he would never force anything onto me, but I reckon every single day he came to me and said, "Hey, do you need anything from me? Like, do you want me to do anything for you?" And over time, I mean, when he first started saying to me, I was going, "Hey, just leave me alone." And then over time, you start to realize that this guy really does care about me. He wants to see me do well. And then when you stand next to him on the field, it's funny. You want to do well for him more than you want to do well for yourself. And I think that is leadership, being able to kind of influence people to go towards one goal. And we've had some pretty good ones here, and we've got some very good ones up top in our admin staff with Nick Politis and the board. They kind of, thing I've seen with them is they set some standards, they set some expectations for the organisation on the field and off the field, and they don't compromise. It's good. They're transparent about it. If we're not doing our job, we're not winning, they'll go find someone else that can do it. And I think it's the same for our administration staff too. So there's been a few lessons here that I've learned.
Yeah, interesting. I mean, I really like that that anecdote there about Cooper, like just constantly being there, and not necessarily pushing things on you, but just letting you know daily. It's like one of those things that needs to be, it's repetition, just knowing that he's got your back, right? And that's as a young player, I got thrust into a leadership group at South Sydney when I was maybe 22, 23, and I thought I had to be someone different or change the way I was going about things. And then when I got here to the Roosters, and I'd grown up a bit, and I also had some very good leaders around me, I learned that it's not necessarily about being a leader rather than just doing every single day, and just making sure you're authentic in the way you do it. And I think that was the thing with Cooper especially. He actually did care, and I probably wasn't the only one that he was saying that to every day. Yeah, awesome. Ollie, from a psychologist's perspective, what would you say that leaders, in businesses need to be the most mindful of right now?
Well, it's exactly like Luke's saying, right? It's that staying connected well, and also, your actions are going to speak so much louder than your words at the moment, and it's backing it up. It's not doing it once; it's doing it every single day, and furthering on from what Luke's saying, as well as that's how you build that authenticity and that trust from your people, as well as when you can foster that genuine care, which comes from repeatedly fronting up each day, checking in, seeing how they're going, offering them the support, as well as obviously, holding people accountable as well. And the more you can build that genuineness and repeatedness and trust, and the more you can expect from your people then as well. As Luke was saying, the leaders at the Roosters are able to be that transparent because they have that trust from the players and from their teammates as well. So I'd be saying it's not about doing it once, it's about doing it routine, and checking in with people should be the first thing that goes in your diary, not last. It shouldn't be the thing that you work around meetings. Your meetings should be working around checking in with your team, seeing how they're going, and seeing what they need from you.
No, that's a good definitely a good shout. You can get kind of caught up in KPIs and all these performance related stuff, but we're all people at the end of the day. So yeah, jumping into that teamwork and culture, obviously I think it's a nice pivot. This is a big challenge across businesses that we speak to, people struggling to keep that connection and team spirit. At Flair, for example, we've tried a number of different things ourselves when it comes to team culture, and at the same time, where employees are working from home, that can be a massive challenge, but it opens up different possibilities to connect with your employees' lives in different ways. So look, a small example we've done, which actually works really well for us, it's a little different, but Friday afternoons, typically that's a forum that in our workplace was reserved for a couple of drinks with colleagues before you go off and spend the weekend with your family. With people working from home, we've seen our HR team do some really cool things. So like one Friday we were sent ingredients to cook brownies together over a video stream with a chef that they'd organised. We've had a company-wide cork and canvas session, made cocktails. We even did pottery classes one Friday afternoon. But what's really cool is wives, husbands, partners, children, they all join in, and you're creating this really nice connection with the family of your colleagues. And it's something that we all look forward to that could never happen actually before. So while it's not all doom and gloom, just that little bit of effort we've seen, makes a big impact, and something that used to be seen as kind of HR fluff, like really helps you be, more connected, more productive, more loyal, retained, that sort of stuff. So Luke, look, I can't imagine Big Jared or some of the forwards jumping in and doing pottery classes with the rest of the players, but when it comes to that teamwork, and you got your front office, your players all in different locations, how has the Roosters organisation ensured that team culture has stayed intact, or potentially even become stronger amongst people that are sort of both in and outside of the bubble?
Yeah, I think we've done a few little things like you just mentioned, big family Zooms and just different activities that people can get involved in, just to get a little bit. It's super difficult to build culture when you're not sitting in front of someone interacting with them all day. It is tough, and as you said, you do your best on the Zooms. But I've found, especially at the moment, I'm away from the team. I've found, like, even Trent Robinson, the coach, he'll call me twice a week, literally just probably to check in on me and just talk footy and life, and just ask me how my family is and things like that. And it makes a massive difference. I'm here with probably 2 or 3 other boys during the week, and you only see your family, which a lot of people listening would probably be in the exact same situation where they're not actually seeing anyone. But just getting a call from someone that genuinely cares what's going on is that's probably been the biggest difference. And I've got calls from him, I've got calls from other different staff, and then I'll go and call a few of the younger boys, and it's just kind of it's an infectious thing that can go through the group.
Yeah, awesome.
And it can go the other way too. It can go the other way too, where you start cutting people off, and it's probably more infectious than the positive stuff.
Yeah, it's hard. So just that I keep hearing that theme, that repetition of care and coming from a good place, makes a massive difference to the individual, right? And Ollie, I guess, we're all humans. Connection, social well-being, there's a bit more of a challenge when we're all stuck in our houses or stuck in our LGAs, depending on where you live at the moment. Is there anything else that you think businesses could be doing to ensure that culture remains strong?
Yeah, I mean, each organisation is different and would have, I'd imagine, have reacted to COVID and isolation and working from home in very different manners, right? And it also probably somewhat depends on, whether your industry and organisation thrived through COVID or, was impacted by COVID as well. I mean, as Luke's saying, and again, it's repeating sort of what he's saying, but the organisations we've seen and worked with that have held things together and retained staff as well have been the ones that have emphasised that connection as well, and made room for people to be people and human in all of this as well. I mean, I was on a a Zoom just before this presenting to 60 people, and I was effectively in the living room of 60 people I've never met before. So that blurred line between employee, colleague, and friend, or someone that we're, you know, more intimately engaged with is sort of, it's coming, it's gone. So we need to make that space for that level of relationship in a way, and acknowledge and check in with each other more than just, you know, how the X's and O's going, but, you know, how are you traveling, what's happening, sharing tips and advice as well. I mean, the organizations that have made a common enemy out of COVID are the ones that have bonded over and through it as well, right? Like the benefit that, in a way, that the Roosters and the other NRL teams have had, for example, is the virus has caused them to all have to uproot and go live in Queensland, or go live in the hotels, etc. And that creates a common enemy out of something. And there's nothing more binding than having mutual angst against something as well. So talking about that and letting that feeling come to the forefront without it dictating every single conversation, obviously, and distracting too much from the goals and objectives you've got, has been really powerful as well. The organizations that just sort of tried to pretend and paper mache and just, oh, we're just going to keep operating, let's not talk about anything else, are the ones where, as Luke says, that's where you get the people disconnecting, and it's wildfire from there.
I really like that, creating a common enemy. And like you say, you know, you don't want to address it left, right, center, day in, day out, because that can be just too much. Everyone's over it. But at the same time, pretending it doesn't exist is a little bit of, like, not talking about the elephant in the room, right?
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
Tip for people trying to strike that balance. Want to jump into that area of that we sort of talked about off the top, maintaining high performance in this kind of environment. Like, obviously, this is really high on the agenda for, you know, all businesses, especially those who are in this recover and rebuild phase. I can imagine, you know, we've got a lot of people on the call from the hospitality and retail industry, for example. But all businesses have been impacted in some way. I guess the big difference, if I think about myself personally, if I have a bad week or month professionally, I don't have the added pressure of it being dissected on the back page and in the media like it would be for yourself, Luke. So when it comes to performance, how does the Roosters as an organisation ensure that you're able to, you know, really drive those, you touched on it earlier, drive those high performance standards out of players, but also the staff under this challenging new environment and under fatigue?
Yeah, it's a long process, and it's hard to ingrain into an organisation, into a team. And we start here with our history. Every single new player that comes to the club, they'll bring their families in, and Robert will take them through a 2 or 3 hour history lesson on our club, where we came from, our area here in the East, why we play the style of football that we play, and who are we playing for? Who are the people that we're playing for? And then it kind of moves on to the fundamentals, our fundamental principles that we play with. We ingrain them in everyone, not under fatigue and then under fatigue. And I think the biggest one that I've picked up coming into the Roosters from previous clubs is Robbo spends a lot of time with individuals and kind of digging deep into them about what makes them tick, what they want, how they want to achieve it. And he probes you into going off by yourself and spending a lot of time, I think I mentioned before, spending a lot of time with yourself and trying to quiet everything down and really figure out what you want, how you want it, how you're going to get there. You map it out, and you kind of set that standard and expectation, and you go after it. And we sit there as a group and we set our own standards and expectations as a team, and we write them down, and they're stuck up, you know, all around the dressing sheds and the building that we try to live by every day on and off the field. But I found it with the best individuals in this team. They spend a lot of time thinking about where they're at in their life, where they want to get to, how they're going to get there. And you feel their drive, you feel their passion. And I know I can say that for myself. I'm going through it right now. I haven't played all year, and even from the moment that I went down, I don't feel sorry for myself or anything else. It just happens. But I know exactly where I'm going. I know exactly what's coming next year. I know exactly what I need to do every single day when I walk in here make sure in April next year that I'm ready to go, and I know exactly how I'm doing it.
Yeah, that's awesome. Like taking it as you're talking, I'm thinking there's massive parallels that businesses can learn, right? It's about, standards up front and going through the history of the club. I mean, businesses need to do a really good job at onboarding their employees into what the organization looks like. Those principles, businesses have values. They need to be more than just stuck on the wall and,
Yeah, we'll see. It's probably easier in a football club than a business, but the people that don't get on that boat, they kind of they're gone very quickly. And it's probably easy to do at a footy club to move someone on, but they just don't fit in. Like if you've got 25 blokes all going in the same direction and you've got 3 or 4 that aren't, and I think that's what builds a strong club. And if you've got 20 or 10 blokes going in the wrong direction, they can drag another 10 with them. And I've been involved in teams that have done that.
Yeah, right. I think, you say it's easier in a footy club, obviously to get, maybe to get rid of stuff, but I think we've all probably at times been in teams where people aren't on the boat or aren't on the bus, whichever analogy you want to use. But I think it's great. The other thing I take from it is like the way you talk about Trent. The fact that a leader has enough time to spend that one-on-one time with the employees, with the players, that sort of thing. Maybe it's a little bit more challenging in workplaces where there's like 1,000 employees. The CEO can't be making 1,000 phone calls every other day, but sounds like it makes a massive impact either way. Ollie, in terms of from your perspective, how should businesses and leaders be balancing mental well-being and then the overall wellness of their employees against sort of ensuring they're hitting those KPIs and targets and achieving outcomes? Obviously, the results on the field, and as you say, Luke, it's a little bit easier in some ways in a footy club to see the outliers and move them on. But in a workplace, it is different. What advice would you give to business leaders in terms of striking balance?
Well, yeah, I think 100% I'd be taking what Luke was saying as well about the footy clubs as well. And effectively what Trent and all the leaders at the club are doing is connecting the new players and staff to something that's bigger than themselves and how that relates then to their purpose, wants and desires out of life as well. And if you can capture that from your staff, then what you can sort of enter into is this real understanding about how your performance relates to your well-being, and your well-being relates and fuels your performance as well. And if you look at the World Health Organization's definition of like mental health and well-being, it is, it's not just being about happy and, having positive state of mind. It is having those things in order to allow you to pursue those things that are meaningful and purposeful for you. And here at Veretis, we, that underpins everything we do, is that we're not just trying to make people happy, we're trying to make people perform well and perform at their best in whatever that is, whether it be work, whether it be as a family member, social member, whatever it is that gets you going. Yeah. Those two things feed off themselves. And if you're performing well, your well-being, your self-efficacy, your self-esteem all go up. When you're feeling good, you put yourself in a better position to perform. And there's probably there is a lot of parallels between football as well. You see that as well, healthy players and fitter, healthier players are going to perform better as well. It's the exact same with employees. And you can use that to drive each component as well and feed off each other. And that's what we're saying to organizations. If you can allow that part of your people to come to work with them, that what is my meaning and purpose, you can then link as to why the organization's performance or their performance within the organization, is meaningful and purposeful and is doing them good. And then you get that real buy-in as well. And you can balance and drive off each other, the well-being, as I keep saying, the well-being and the performance. So bring both into the same conversation. Your well-being is your fuel and your performance is your car. There's no point having a car without any fuel. There's no point having all this fuel without a car. You need both to get somewhere.
Yeah, I like that. And I think employees want that too. So it's like, it's self-fulfilling, right? To be a desired business, showing that you care about your employees' wellness is a massive differentiator to attracting talent, retaining talent, but at the same time, having that talent perform at its peak.
Absolutely. And that's one of the key things, key pillars of motivation is seeing that your effort's making a difference. Yeah. Right. And, exactly the same for athletes as it is employees, right? You want to see that your effort is producing some sort of outcome as well. And, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Awesome. Look, let's jump into wellness a bit more broadly now, because look, RUOK Day today is obviously very much really important, very much about mental wellness. But we know that, and Ollie, we've talked about this ad nauseum. Mental wellness doesn't sit in a silo. We talk to businesses all the time about these sort of 4 pillars of wellness, which all play a role. So mental, social, physical wellness, financial wellness. Sort of we touched on a little bit at the beginning there with the uncertainty. But these 4 areas are really interrelated. Like what might be a symptom in one area could be caused by a problem in another. For example, financial stress might lead to mental wellness challenges, or social challenges, or isolation could impact us physically, and so on. So, with the rapidly changing world of bubbles and lockdowns and whatever we've got coming next, I'm going to launch a really quick poll about this concept, just for the audience. I want to kind of get an idea of which of these areas do you think are most important, or is your business focusing on the most out of mental, physical, and social wellness? So we'll leave that up there for a couple of minutes while we get the audience to answer. But Ollie, from an EAP provider's perspective, sort of globally, keen to hear your take on how those things all interact.
Yeah, it's really interesting. EAP looks very different country to country. And there's different cultural components, different health system components as well. And it looks very different. Your good EAP providers in every country are going to provide not just that traditional bread and butter counselling or mental health support, but exactly like you said, Cam, they're aware that there's other factors that can contribute to your state of well-being, and you need to be looking at the person holistically as well. How are they traveling financially, legally, and physically as well? So a good provider would be offering those services to organizations as well. And then when you look globally, it's really interesting, as I said, with those different healthcare models, with those different cultural expectations as well. Some countries, the mental health component of an EAP is really, really small. So here in Australia, Veretis, probably 90 to 95% of the services that we provide are those counselling services. In Argentina, for example, where it's quite easy and financially not that expensive to go see a psychologist, our partners in Argentina, 80 to 85% of their work is actually in the financial assistance component of well-being as well. They do nearly no counselling as well. It's more to do with financial and elder, what we call here elder care as well. Which is another growing component of our healthier employees as the sandwich generation start to enter into leadership positions. So what we refer to the sandwich generation is those that are not just caring, traditionally workers would be caring for a young one, for a child, but nowadays with growing age, life expectancy, etc., we're getting a sandwich generation, which is people that have got kids of their own, but are also starting to take on carer duties for their parents or their elders as well. And that's a growing area of support that we're providing, as well as helping people navigate the time around that all. So, there's a mental health component around burnout and things like that, but then also how do I support a parent as well? What services are out there? How can I link them in with that as well? So it's a really interesting concept, and it looks very different, as I said, country to country as well.
Right. Hey, Brittany, maybe we can share the poll results. What do you reckon? There we go. Maybe it's because it's mental, it's RUOK Day, mental resilience, obviously by far and away the most. It's funny, we've run this poll 10 different times. What did I tell you? What did I say? That the financial well-being is always, this is the first time it hasn't been exactly 11%, but it was close enough. So it's still not a huge focus. And interesting, maybe this poll result would have been different in Argentina, but we've seen these conversations in the workplace around financial wellness a lot, and financial education is starting to come up more and more, especially now when individuals are kind of feel more open to talking about challenges. In a way, the blessing of having that common enemy, like you described earlier, Ollie, of COVID, has allowed people to be more comfortable about talking about financial stress and that sort of stuff, because they've got an external factor to kind of blame. Luke, the Roosters are pretty well known for their focus on overall player welfare, both, post work as well, and setting you up for success on and off the field. When you see some of those stats and hear Ollie talk about the different areas around the world in terms of what businesses are focusing on, to see that financial wellness, at least with the audience here, scores so low, a bit interesting, right? We go to work to get paid after all. What are some of the things that the Roosters do, or the NRL do, even that help you guys in relation to that financial wellness pillar?
Yeah, well, we obviously get paid a decent amount, most of us, which helps. But I think I've sat with a lot of people, and I went through it with one of our staff the other day, a young fella, and he was talking about money, and they don't get paid much, most of the admin stuff here. And I sat with the CEO at the start of the year, and he spoke to me about, I asked him actually, how do you deal with, obviously everyone wants to get pay rises all the time, yearly. Like, where do you stop? How do you deal with this? How do you keep people you like and that? And his answer to me was, you need to make people feel valued and wanted. And that's what Ollie said before about everyone just wants to feel like they're making a difference, whether it's their company or in life. And that kind of resonated with me about, he said, it's not all about the money. Most people just want to feel they're appreciated, they're wanted, they've done a good job. And the young guy that I was talking to the other day, he said exactly the same thing to me. He said, I'm not after money. I want to stay here, but I want the club to tell me that I've done a good job and that I'm wanted here. And I just went straight away. I was like, it all fits in that web.
Yeah, that's a good sign of good culture. And I mean, a pay rise, it lasts for, a month, and then you're back dealing with all the challenges that got you asking for it in the first place.
Yeah, well, it is funny because, someone on 50,000, someone on 100, and someone on 500 or $1 million, I've seen them all, and they all have the same problem. Like, they all have the same problem, and there's never enough for people. And I'm doing some work. I'm doing an internship at the moment with a wealth management company. So I've got to meet a lot of different clients. They deal with some super wealthy families and things like that. They have the exact same problems. It's your lifestyle just keeps moving up, and it's kind of never really enough. So I think once you figure that out, you're a lot better off.
I heard I did some work, sorry to jump in, I did some work with the head of mental health for the NBA a few years ago, and he had this amazing stat that it was something like within 3 years of retirement, 27% of players were broke. And that was after being paid tens of millions of dollars each and every year. But again, like Luke was saying, your lifestyle goes up as well, and that financial literacy as well is so important, because you can get rid of it, you can burn it as quick as you can get it.
I think you see it in our game too. The higher paid players, they're more scrutinised. The trend is they don't perform usually as good as they were before they were getting paid, and you probably see that in some businesses too. But yeah, it's not the be all and end all.
No, it's really, those are really good insights. I think people might work to get money, but it's not what makes them perform. Is what I'm kind of hearing. Whether it's as a player or as an employee of an organisation, we're all dealing with the same financial challenges. And just because your company gives you money doesn't mean you know how to spend it, or how to manage it properly. Ollie, do you think businesses? I want to sort of just quickly dive back to that piece you were talking about Argentina. Like, it must be. I think what surprises me is I hear, 90% of Australia's EAP is around mental, and it's the opposite in Argentina. But then we're again, for this conversation, we're the most indebted people in the world. I think our debt per capita is pretty high. I'm sure that impacts our mental side in a lot of ways. Maybe I'm sharing too much about myself here, but But do you think workplaces, are doing enough? Should be doing more? Are you seeing this trend change in Australia?
Yeah, it's a really interesting question. I mean, particularly over the last 18 months, there's been uncertainty in employment, which or reductions, which has caused a lot of stress to people as well. I think it's probably highlighted to a lot of people that, thinking proactively about your finances is important in regards to your well-being and things like that. It's also highlighted to us all how little control, as much as humans think we've got this whole thing sorted out, how little control we've really got over everything, and something none of us have ever experienced before can crop up and shut your whole league down for 3 or 6 months, or shut your whole industry down for a year, 2 years, effectively, for those in hospitality as well. So I think there's an element of what organizations, particularly in helping people feel valued, is going to be helping them understand, how do you keep yourself in a good financial situation and be prepared for whatever might happen in the future as well. And I think because otherwise people are going to be just non-stop financially anxious, right? And that's going to impact their mental health, be distracting to their performance as well. So if you can help people be at ease a bit more around that through some good financial literacy, without obviously going too personal and too far into people's lives, I think that's going to be a terrific benefit that employers are going to be able to offer employees and learn from this situation.
Yeah, no, couldn't have said it better myself, mate. Well, let's jump onto just really quickly. You mentioned future. Let's look into that quickly and then jump to the questions, because they're sort of coming in. Luke, with everything you've been through last 18 months and the challenges that you've kind of faced, what would your advice be to employees who are living in their own version of the bubble right now and maybe facing, weird futures, uncertain futures as their workplace, starts to recover?
Yeah, I think the first thing you got to remind yourself is we all have a choice. We all have a choice about how you perceive the situation you're in. And I remember a few years ago, I did a bit of community work with some prisoners. And I remember asking a few of them, like, what do you do? How do you survive this? And a few of them just went, it's whatever, like how I perceive this time and what I'm going to do with this time. I'm going to make myself a better person. And then you obviously get a lot of them that go the other way. But the same thing with us at the moment. You're in a mini prison-y type situation. Most people are at home, and you can do whatever you want with it. You can sit there and feel sorry for yourself, think that life sucks and you can't do anything and all the things you can't do, or you can figure out what you want to do. You can figure out things to do with your spare time that are productive. You can better yourself as a person. You can better yourself educational. There are a lot of things that people can be doing right now, and it's how you perceive it. If you think it's a bad situation, it's going to go for a lot longer. If you think it's an opportunity, it'll be a lot more pleasant. And probably the thing that I got out of it, obviously have 2 little kids, and the minute we went into it, I went, well, it's going to have a great opportunity to spend time with them. I went out, I started doing an internship with a company, and I thought, well, what better time than, you being injured to go and do some work for someone and get some experience in an industry that, I may or may not go into after footy. So yeah, it's definitely perception.
Yeah, awesome. So making the opportunity, every cloud has a silver lining, corny saying, but it's true, right? And then Ollie, I know we've talked about this a little bit as well, but you're in an interesting position. You work with businesses that have come out of lockdown and reopened, which, watch the news, it looks like it's on its way here. What are you seeing globally, and any tips that businesses can take to get ahead of some of the challenges that maybe they haven't seen yet, but are coming?
Yeah, absolutely. I think before I quickly answer that one, I'll probably just reiterate Luke's point there as well. The companies, again, and people that we're seeing that are thriving in COVID are the ones that are they're making the most out of however you want to call this experience, even though it's not something you ever want to do again, even though it's not happy, they're getting something out of it. We're working with one company that's in sales as well, and the nature of what they sell, they've lost 80% of their business as well. And I started having anxiety for them. I was like, this is like, wow. And the leader of that organization was like, it is what it is, Ollie. And what I'm concentrating on is the fact that I am never, ever, ever going to get this opportunity again. We are never, ever, ever going to have this opportunity 8, 10, 12 weeks of your life uninterrupted, where you can, exactly like Luke said, spend more time with your kids and your family. You can all be at home at once. This guy's a pretty serious athlete in his own right. He's like, I get 10 weeks of training. He doesn't get paid for his sport, but he's like, I get 10 weeks of uninterrupted training, which I've never had before as well. And he's going through the exact same COVID that we're all going through, but the perception he was having, despite having lost 80% of his business, was allowing him to thrive, not just survive, because you can only survive for so long, but you could thrive forever. Coming back to this question now as well about in regards to what we're seeing, again, we're really well placed being part of a global partnership and global provider. And we're paying a close attention at the moment to America and what's happening over there with the return to work and sort of communities and society opening up again. And we're starting to pay more and more attention with Israel as well, obviously with the resurgence and return of lockdowns that are happening there. But in America, and the data that we've found from America is that pretty much there's an even 3-way split between how returning to work has impacted employee mental health. 1/3, it's benefited, brilliant, more than happy. This is brilliant, back, thriving, things are getting going again. 1/3, no difference. And 1/3 that has actually caused some level of anxiousness, depression, stress around returning back to the workplace. What's even more interesting is in that 1/3 that have been impacted negatively by the return to work, the majority of that group is actually parents, those that have spent COVID homeschooling, which is really interesting, because a lot of what we're seeing and hearing in community at the moment, in society at the moment, and workplace at the moment, is the pressure and stress of balancing homeschooling and work commitments as well. So that's really that's been really interesting. So employers need to be really cognizant of this as well, that you're going to have people coming in at a raft of different spaces, of different expectations and different experiences of what they've been through in COVID as well. We also see from America the return of the health anxiousness. So like I said right at the beginning with 2020, most of us were concerned health-wise. Am I not going to, become really sick or not? That returns. Again, what we've seen is that returns back in America. And that's actually why a lot of the parents or those who are parents at workplaces are more anxious, because their exposure to more communities is greater, because they're going back to the workplace. What am I going to bring back to my kids? And my kids are going back to school. What are they bringing back to the family as well? So their nets are a lot broader as well. So that is why our firm belief here is that psychological safety is 100% the most important thing that employers should be thinking about and preparing for when they start talking about returning people back to the office as well. Because you're going to have, like we said the other day, Cam, you're going to have people that range from want to just give everyone hugs to other people that are going to come in with the pool noodles duct tape to their head to keep the 1.5 away and just do not come near me. And you're going to have to make space for all those people to come in and feel psychologically safe, which is the vulnerability to be who I am and say my concerns and voice and my growth from within the organization as well. So if you're only worrying about the mental health of your employees, you're behind the ball already. You need to start thinking about those proactive and the environmental factors of the psychological safety of your business. Are my people, from their perception, not mine, again, are they coming in feeling like they can be who they want to be and be vulnerable to talk up and be part of the group as well? Because whenever we're interacting socially, we're all making an element of ourselves vulnerable, right? We're putting our opinions forward, out on the table, etc. So you need to be creating an environment around that. Do my people feel safe to learn, to contribute, to be included, and to make mistakes effectively as well? They're the 4 main areas of psychological safety that you employers need to be working on now so that when we get to being back in the office, people are feeling as comfortable as possible. That's how we're going to you'll avoid your employees falling into that bottom third.
Yeah.
So unfortunately, without scaring anyone, it's not going to be mental health utopia when this is all over. We've still got a couple more challenges ahead of us.
Yeah, I think that's, I mean, everyone's had a different experience. Like parents have their own unique challenge that they've gone through. Singles in their, living in an apartment in their 20s have gone through challenges. People that are either from overseas or have partners that are overseas have gone through unique challenges. And I think even just, I observe this with my own communications with my friends, it's really difficult to understand somebody else's perspective. And so like, to me, what I take from that, Ollie, is that psychological safety in the workplace is about, how do you create a space where everybody can share their own experience and not feel judged? I think that's going to be, yeah, you're right. Like it's a good challenge to keep in mind.
Absolutely. And there's some simple ways that organizations can get on top of that as well. And it's fills in nicely with what we've been talking about today, fits in with your leadership, your culture, and how authentic and trustworthy you're being as a leader and a team member.
Awesome. Hey guys, we've got 5 minutes to go. Got a bunch of questions for the group, and so some of them are quite similar. So I'll group a couple together. Unfortunately, no one's asking me any questions. They all seem to go to Luke and Ollie, which no surprise. This one's sort of I'm going to combine it all into one. But Kate from Belgravia has asked, how do you stay positive and confident when things get hard? And the examples like injuries or media shaming your performance, or how do you rebuild? And then there's another one that sort of said, how do the Roosters help you do that? So keen to sort of dive into that, Luke, that theme of staying positive when the chips are down.
Yeah, so I've mentioned it a few times today, but probably the three things for me are: you better know your beliefs and values, and you better know where you're going. You better have a clear goal in mind. You better know your beliefs and values, because when things get hard, if you don't know your values and you don't have a clear path and goal where you're going, you will start to fall apart. And I've seen it with so many players, so many young players especially. We're exposed to the media and social media at the click of a finger. People can get at you. If you don't know yourself, or you've spent a lot of time figuring out, what things mean to you, it's hard. And when things start going wrong, that's what you fall back to.
And that's I think it's good. Yeah, really, really, really good advice. I want to jump in there with this one as well, because I know we touched on it the other day, Ollie. So I don't know if you want to talk about this, maybe Luke as well. Got this from Stephen from Silk, particularly for men of all ages. Why do you think it's so important to talk about feelings when things go wrong? So Ollie, I don't know, from a psychologist perspective, the men about their feelings, I imagine that comes up a bit.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, our conversation yesterday when Cam, when we were having a chat, went down a bit of a different avenue, but men should share, and we should encourage men to talk. But at the same point, even me as a psychologist says, well, if men don't want to talk, why are we forcing men to talk? How else can we support each other as men and as a society to help men, work through mental health challenges as well? And if talking is not something that men naturally want to do, I'll put my first hand up. I'm a psychologist and I don't enjoy talking about my feelings. So, what other ways can we support men? And sometimes it's just being with, right? Like, you don't have to say anything. Some of the most powerful moments I've had with my mates is just both sitting there being like, this sucks. But knowing that you've got someone that's willing to sit there with you, that's an empowering place to be, because it's not someone attempting to take responsibility off you, take your problems off you, but is willing to sit there and go, you know what? This is a bit of a pickle. This is a bit of a challenging time. But I'm here for you. I'm here for you. And when you're ready to ask me, I'm here. But that doesn't mean we shouldn't ask as well. It is Are You Okay Day, but look at what you can do with men that just isn't just, hey, let's talk more. Because if it was that easy, men would already be doing it.
Yeah. I think that's a point. Obviously, you touched on it earlier, Luke. Just like the way Cooper was with you, or Trent was with you, just providing a forum where if you want to talk, you can, but you know that person's got your back. That's sort of what I'm hearing from you, Ollie, as well.
Yeah, definitely. I think I'm no expert on it, but the experiences I've had and the experience I mentioned with Cooper before, it is powerful just to be there.
Yeah, absolutely, guys. We're bang on time, but the feedback that's coming in is like really, really positive. Thank you so much, Luke and Ollie, for sharing an hour with the audience. I think everybody enjoyed it. The fact that the attendance rate didn't dip throughout the whole thing is pretty rare in a time when we've got a bit of screen fatigue. So it shows that people got a lot out of it. So guys, thank you. Thank you for today. For everyone on the call, Ollie's mentioned he's happy to answer any questions you've got if you want to connect with him on LinkedIn. So please do, Oliver Brecht, or follow Veretis. But we'll do a lot more of these together over the next couple of months. But guys, thanks for today, Luke. Good luck on the weekend.
Appreciate it.
Hope you guys all have a good rest of the day.
Thanks, mate.